Alright guys, so today in class we focused on adding and subtracting decimals, and we're adding and subtracting positive and negative decimals. So we have to use those integer rules that we learned back in our first unit. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do a refresh on those integer rules because we have to use those today when we're adding and subtracting decimals. Okay, so first off, when we're adding integers, if they are the same sign, the rule is that we're going to find the sum and keep the sign. Okay, so if they're both negative, we're going to find the sum, we're going to add them together, and we're going to keep the negative sign. If they are both positive, we're going to add them together, and we're going to keep the positive sign. Now, if they are different signs, okay, we're going to find the difference and keep the sign of the greater absolute value. Okay, so if they're different, we're going to go ahead and subtract them and then keep the one with the greater absolute value. Okay, some way that you might be able to remember it, if they are the same sign, you're going to find the sum. All of those start with the S. Same is sum. Different signs is the difference. Okay, they both start with a D. Now, when we do subtraction, our rule for subtraction is to change our subtraction to addition and add the opposite. And then we have an addition problem, so we'll have to come over here and follow our addition rules. Same thing if they're different signs. So change the subtraction to addition and add the opposite, and then we have an addition problem. So we'll follow whichever addition rule that we need. Okay, so let's take a look at some examples. Our first example is negative 6.24 plus negative 3.1 plus negative 0.43. Okay, so we have to ask ourselves, are they the same sign or are they different? If you notice, all of these have a negative sign, so they are the same. So the rule is to find the sum and keep the sign. So find the sum is we're going to add all of these together, and we know when we are adding decimals that we are going to line up the decimal points and add in our placeholders as needed. So remember in class I suggested that you guys use graph paper, and that's so we can keep everything nice and neat and lined up, and I highly suggest if you have it there, use it. Okay, one number per box, put our decimal point on a line. So we have negative 6.24 plus negative 3.1 plus 0.543. Now we're going to fill in our zeros as placeholders. So we're going to put a placeholder after the 4. Okay, we're going to put 2 placeholders after our 1. And now we're all set up, and we're just going to add straight down. 0 plus 0 plus 3 is a 3. 4 plus 0 plus 4 is an 8. 2 plus 1 plus 5 gives us an 8. When we're adding decimals, we just bring that decimal point and drop it straight down. And then we have 6 plus 3 plus 0 gives us a 9. Now, find the sum. We did that, and we're going to keep the sign, so our answer is a negative. So our final answer is negative 9.883. Okay, so let's go over here. Let's look at a subtraction problem. And on our subtraction problem, we have negative 5.12 minus negative 9.008. Now our subtraction rule is that we change our subtraction to addition, which I did right here, and add the opposite. Now you remember back in the integers unit, I told you to rewrite that problem. Same thing stands today. So our new problem says negative 5.12 plus positive 9.008. Change the subtraction to addition and add the opposite. Now we have to follow the addition rule. So we have to ask ourselves, are they the same sign or are they different signs? If we look, we have a negative and we have a positive. Okay, they are different signs. So the rule is to find the difference and keep the sign of the greater absolute value. So our difference means we're going to be subtracting. I know that our 9.008, it's the bigger set of numbers, so I'm going to put it on the top. So I'm subtracting. And I know that I'm going to go ahead and identify whether my answer is going to be a positive or a negative. And we're going to keep the sign of the greater absolute value. So the reason I know it's going to be a positive is because the positive 9.008 has the greater absolute value. So I'm going to come down here and put that immediately right at the beginning so I don't forget. Most incorrect answers just happen because people forget the sign at the end. So I always recommend that you put it in at the beginning. And then I'm going to just find the difference like the rule says. So I'm going to line up my decimal points, 9.008. And then I have minus 5.12 because I'm finding the difference. I'm going to put in my 0 as a placeholder, and then I'm just going to subtract. So I have 8 minus 0 is 8. I can't take 2 away from the 0, so I'm going to make it a 10. I can't borrow from the 0, so I'm going to make this a 10. I took 1 away, so this 90 becomes an 89. Okay, so now I have 10 minus 2 is 8. 9 minus 1 is also 8. I'm going to drop down my decimal point because when we're subtracting, those decimal points stay lined up, and so I just drop it down. And then I have 8 minus 5, and that gives me 3. And again, I know it's a positive 3 because my 9 had the greater absolute value. Okay, now I like to check my decimals by estimating, and I need to know that if I estimated the difference between a positive 9 and roughly a negative 5, that answer would be a positive 4. So I come down here and I look at my decimal point and I have 3.888. Well, that's almost a positive 4, so I can know that my answer is correct.